again and welcome to ManchTalk. I'm Tammy Simmons. I'm your host and I'm glad you're tuning in to watch today. I do have a guest for us later in the show today, so I'm going to do the upcoming events and then I'll do a little complaining because, that seems to be what I do half the time. And then we'll get to our guest. First, I wanted to tell people about some upcoming events. I always want to remind people that you can visit a couple different websites to find out some things that are going on in Manchester. StarkPark.com always lists what's going on. They have concert series up in Stark Park up on North River Road for free on Sunday afternoons. I also wanted to mention that there's still a coupon out there for Edgewater Kayak and Hooksett. So if you want to get out this holiday weekend and try kayaking, you can go up to Edgewater Drive in Hooksett, which is off of the Route 3 that's on the west side. I'm not sure which one that is. Anyways, it's right. You could Google it and you'll figure it out. But they have a coupon. You can rent a kayak for $12 for the whole day and kayak on the Merrimack River. Also coming up this Saturday, the 2nd of September, is the Cruisin' Downtown event put on by the Manchester Rotary Club. Apparently they do this every year, and I think it closes down Elm Street, so if you aren't already annoyed about Elm Street being disrupted every day, it's going to be disrupted on Saturday. I'm not 100% sure if it's in Veterans Park, or if it's at Brady Sullivan Tower, or if it's just downtown, because their website, cruisingdowntown.com, seems to give me a whole bunch of information, but not very much about the actual event themselves. From what I understand, there's a $5 donation suggested, and kids under 12 are free. That is this coming Saturday, September 2nd, cruisingdowntown.com. Also this weekend outside of Manchester is the Hopkinton State Fair, which is always fun, and I've never been, but the Lancaster State Fair, if you want to travel up all the way up to the tippity top of New Hampshire, to go to a fair. Big event coming up this weekend, which is, personal to me, is I'm having a yard sale, which is awesome. You can come visit me at 166 Varney Street if you want to buy some good junk cheap. But I bring it up because, did you know that you have to get a permit to get a yard sale? I'm not really sure what the purpose is, other than giving the city $5 of my money is. But I had to go down to the planning department this afternoon and give them my $5 and fill out a form so that I could get this handy dandy piece of paper that says, yes, Tammy can have a yard sale this Saturday. It did say that you can only have 2 yard sales a year, which I did not know about and don't know why. I'm sure there was some good intention. Maybe somebody said, well, I don't want the guy next to me setting up a flea market in his driveway. But the more I think about it, do I really care if the guy next door makes his living selling birdhouses in his driveway? I mean, as long as it's not disrupting parking or something like that, I'm not sure I want the government restricting how you can make your living. I mean, do kids having a lemonade sale, do they have to get a $5 permit? Can they only do it twice a year? I think this is probably more of a revenue generator for the city than it is a real live purpose. Maybe have people register if they're having a sale so that you can keep track of the people that are registering, having sales every week or something, and decide that they're actually running a business and not just having a yard sale or a lemonade stand or something like that. But I did find that interesting that I had to pay $5 and, me being the one who wants to follow the city ordinances all the time, went down and paid my $5. Parking on Elm Street is still a nightmare. I'm pretty sure I'll have a parking ticket when I get out of here today. I'm taping this on Tuesday the 29th. After I put my money in the little machine and put the tag on the dash and headed in, I realized there's some signs that are facing the sidewalk. They don't face the street that say you're not supposed to park there. I was already parked. I already paid my money to park. If they want to ticket me $10, I think we're going to have to argue about whether or not I was informed before I parked. But that's that. Last week, there were a couple great events last week. Greek Fest over at the Assumption Greek Church. St. Pius had a festival or a penny sale, and there was Maharan down on Caliph Road. Great events. If you got to get out to them, they're always a good time. Lots of good food and things like that. So that's what's going on in Manchester. I want to do a shout out to the Manchester Animal Shelter. You can find their website at manchesteranimalshelter.org. And I bring this up because I think one of the reasons that I choose to run for alderman, and I think a lot of reasons people I know choose to run for alderman, is that they actually believe in their community, they believe in their neighborhood, they actually want to help their neighbors. And this has really been on my mind with all the flooding that's going on in Texas. It's amazing to watch so many people down in Houston reaching out and helping their neighbors, not just waiting for the government to come in and do it for them. And I think sometimes we let emotions get in the way of just being good people and being good neighbors. And, I think if your alderman should be, the advocate for your whole neighborhood and your ward. And, I've gone off on down a pigeonhole, but I mentioned the Manchester Animal Shelter because they do a lot of great work. Not only can you go there to adopt a pet or anything, but I had an interaction with them earlier today because as I've mentioned before, Dan and I bought a house on Varney Street, and we're still moving stuff out of our house on Parker Street. And I went over to the Parker Street house this morning, and there was this beautiful little teeny tiny Siamese cat all hunched down on my deck. And I thought, well, where'd you come from? And I picked her up, and she was skin and bones, and obviously she wasn't a stray. And I went home, and I went to Facebook, and I posted a picture and said, if anybody knows where this cat belongs, please let me know. I called the Manchester Animal Shelter, and they said if I sent them pictures, they'd check their logs. By the time I posted that and got back to the house on Varney Street, Ross Terrio, who's a school board member, had tagged me and said, is this the cat? Because the owner had posted a picture of the cat they were missing. The animal shelter had already called me to say, I think we know who it belongs to. And within probably an hour's worth of time, I was back over at Parker Street handing this adorable little cat over to a very grateful owner who lives just blocks down the street and just couldn't find her anywhere. So I am really appreciative to the Manchester Animal Shelter for all the good work they do on behalf of animals and pet owners here in the city. And if you can donate, you can go to manchesteranimalshelter.org. They have a list of items they could use, and they can always use financial donations. So that's my rants for the week. I'd like to get to the guest so she gets some time to talk. Joining me today is Elizabeth Moreau. She is running for alderman in Ward 6, which is an open seat because Nick Pappas was the alderman there, and Nick moved out of the city and moved to, I think, Auburn. So there's an open seat, which means not only can you vote for her in the interim election, which would make her alderman this September, you can also vote for her again in November and make her the alderman for the next 2 weeks. So thank you for coming on, Elizabeth. So tell me a little bit about you and, your life.
I'm fairly new to Ward 6. We've been there about 2 years in the off of Cohas and Brookfield development. I live with my fiance, my 7-year-old daughter who goes to Green Acres. I work at the immigration office over in Bedford, so I had some experience there. I've lived in Manchester overall for 5 years. Previous to that, I was in the military and then high school in southern New Hampshire.
Okay, so all around American person, just typical person, just the good person living down the street.
Yeah.
So what made you decide you wanted to run for alderman?
I saw the opportunity there. I know Pappas had left in April. It seemed like a lot of people in our ward were upset they didn't have a voice in the city. And I think I could be that person. I'd want to be there and able to take the calls, the emails. I have a busy life too, but I have that time to put towards this.
That's awesome. I know I've seen you at City Hall before, probably for the same reasons I'm at City Hall, but I figured we could talk a little bit about things that seem to be bubbled up in the last few weeks in Manchester. First, about the tax cap. If you're elected, would you override the cap? Do you think what are the circumstances that would cause you to override the cap? How do you feel about it, et cetera?
Well, the union leader asked this question too of all the candidates, and it's pretty straightforward, no. I think our city brings in enough income with the taxes that they do have that we just need to allocate it the right way.
I agree.
There's
I
plenty
think
of money.
I always say to people, we don't have a revenue problem, we have a spending problem.
Yeah.
I don't know, I've been trying to get the exact numbers, but I bought my house on Parker Street 20 years ago. Since then, my property taxes have gone up 74%. There are like 2,500 fewer students in our schools.
Yep.
And the budget's grown. That doesn't even make any sense.
It's all about putting it to the right places.
It'd be like if you had a family of 6 and you were spending more on your groceries after the kids moved out than you were before the kids. It just doesn't even make any sense. So good. On the tax cap, we're on the same page there. Yep. Then the next question that seems to be, from what I'm hearing anyways, is the concern over the city charter and conflicts of interest and whether you think those aldermen who voted for the contracts impacting their children did violate the city charter, would you have voted to send it to the conduct board? Just how do you feel about all of that?
That was probably the most acidine confrontation I've seen in City Hall. To define a conflict of interest, they were arguing over that basic principle.
Yep.
You know, I think that what they meant 20 years ago means this or it means that, and it's clear if it has any financial interest or has the impression that it could be a financial interest for you or your family, don't vote on it.
Right. That's what I didn't. I was there that night too, and I thought the same thing. I thought even if you weren't 100% sure, like I give Barbara Shaw a little credit because she actually said, "Now I have no idea if it's a conflict or it isn't a conflict," you know.
Yeah.
And said she wouldn't vote on any contracts going forward until this was decided. If you go back and read the charter, if there is a confusion or if there is any doubt, it's supposed to go to the conduct board. They're the ones who are supposed to determine what the charter means, how it should apply. So for the alderman to not even vote to send it to the conduct board I found.
Did you notice the Keno vote that went through? The restaurant owners who would be impacted abstained from the vote.
Right.
I don't understand
right.
why.
Right.
It's cut and clear.
Because it impacts you. I mean, you can support something. I mean, I was a state rep, and there were times that I was voting on behalf of Manchester in a way differently than I personally believe. You know, like we had to vote on an education funding bill once, and it was going to cost Manchester a chunk of money. In principle, I think the bill was correct because I think we were probably getting money that we shouldn't have been getting. But I wasn't going to vote that way because I'm supposed to represent the people of Manchester. You know, I have to. So sometimes it's like you can't win. So yeah, I agree. I think that that whole conversation was bizarre because you had people saying, "I don't think it means this. I think if you're voting on a contract of 1,000 people, it's okay if it benefits your kid." And I was like, no.
Still doesn't.
And
no.
Dan at home, my partner Dan, he said he found it interesting because when you're talking about conflict of interest, if it benefited the whole community, you know, which everything you vote on benefits yourself. I mean, if we vote on a budget, it would benefit us or cost us money, you know.
Yeah.
So, but if it's the whole community, that's not a conflict. And he found it interesting that everybody that has union support or was a former union, very union-orientated people, all seem to think that a contract involving a whole union of people was the same as the whole community, as if they were the whole community. And I was like, oh, that's an interesting thought. You know, do you, maybe, I don't know. It was disturbing. Yeah. I know we talked about proper allocation of funds, and I mean, and that's hard to know. I know when I talk to voters, it's hard to give them specifics because we're not in those seats. We don't get to see all the day-to-day issues. We don't know. I'm trying to get more and more of my ward to tell me what's important to them because I don't want it to just be what's important to me. I'm sure you feel the same way. One of the things that has always bothered me, and I do have some conflict over it, is that we spend a significant amount of money on health insurance or health coverage for the members of the aldermanic board. You said you worked for immigration, so I'm assuming that, and yet you were in the military, so I'm assuming you probably have your own health insurance.
That's correct. I do for myself and my family.
Yep, and I'm in the same boat. Dan and I are on the same policy that we pay dearly for, but we are. Do you think that it's a good use of taxpayer money to have health insurance for the alderman?
I don't believe aldermen should have health insurance through the city. The work that I would be doing is less than half-time work. You're not a city employee or an elected official. The amount of time does not equate $20,000 in benefits.
Right, I agree.
And a lot of people on the board, like I said before, have successful businesses.
Yep.
They have other income sources. This isn't their full-time job.
Right. I wonder sometimes, I don't know. I know there's people that say up at the State House that people run for office because they can, when you're an elected state rep, you can buy into the state insurance. It's not cheap, but you can do it. So if you didn't have any access to health care, it's a good way, it is a way to have access to a health policy that's probably better than what you would get if you went into the exchange.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't have a problem with the alderman having access to city health care. Like if you want to pay the premium. If it's a $20,000 cost, well, then I think the alderman should be paying the $20,000. And what people may or may not know is it doesn't even just cover the elected official, but their families as well. So, you know, I don't know. I think if we're gonna ask taxpayers to keep raising their taxes, I think we have to make sure we're taking away it. It is kind of a weird perk that for some reason, maybe years ago when healthcare wasn't so expensive, it might not have been that big of a deal. But it's not a full time. I mean, it's not an actual paid position. If you want a city paid position, get a city job.
Yeah.
So what else are you hearing when you're out knocking? I know you're out knocking on doors. You said 15,000 steps a day.
Yeah, when I am out on the doors, it's about 15,000 steps. We have a very large ward. Some of the things that I'm hearing are people are kind of upset with DPW recently, all the overgrowth in our ward. Specifically, some of our recreational trails need some more care than they're receiving. Another thing is they had switched our voting place out from St. Pius Church to the school. Me personally, I'm not really, it's not a big concern of mine, but the constituents in my ward, you know, would like it to be within our ward.
Well, and I do know a little background on that. Apparently St. Pius made the decision that they didn't want it there anymore, and that's fine. That's their decision.
Yeah.
And I know the city clerk's office was scrambling for months and months and months trying to find any place that would fit the criteria within the ward. And you know, you think there's got to be something, but then when you really look at your ward, you don't have a lot of
Gathering spots.
Right. There's not. I mean, is there a school in Ward 6?
I don't believe so.
I don't.
If
Right.
they're all right on the outskirts of it.
So it is unfortunate that people have to go, but I don't know how far.
It's maybe 2.5, 3 miles driving from St. Pius.
So it's, you know, it's an impact, but I don't know that, you know, I'm not sure what as alderman you could have done about that. Can't, you know.
Can't do anything at this point, but
The
moving
trails,
forward.
that's an interesting thing because I do sometimes wonder why certain things get the attention and other things don't. I cut through an alley coming here today from City Hall, and it was all paved with bricks. And I thought, this is an alley. This is like where somebody puts their trash for this, you know, the downtown businesses.
Yeah.
And I've got sidewalks in my neighborhood for as long as I can remember have been impassable. So, you know, and I have a big thing. I like curbing. I'm a big fan of granite curbs. And then, you know, if you talk to the city, they'll say, oh, you can split the cost, but in this day and age, if you have to spend $2,000, it's probably not going to be on curbing in front of your house.
Yeah.
But I do think, you know, there's got to be better ways to keep the city looking better and more attractive because, you know, you don't want nobody benefits if our city looks like a
I forget who it was specifically on Facebook that mentioned we had the 10-miler in Ward 6 recently. The overgrowth was making it so people couldn't even pass over the sidewalk. It was almost to the road.
Yeah,
and
that's
there's
crazy.
a couple other spots also. I think we're going to be getting a group of people together Saturday to try to take that up.
Yep.
After that, hopefully work with DPW to bring some more attention to Ward 6.
Yep. I think it's maybe it's because you're on the outer edge, just like us. I'm on Ward 10, so I'm on the other outer edge. It is. I live on Barney Street, so we do get a little bit more attention than I realized. But even across the street from my house, I know they have the little cart that drives by with the weed killer.
Yep.
But why is it only in some? I mean, I live on Barney Street. That's a major thoroughfare. You know?
Yeah.
It would be nice to actually see a list of streets that actually get the treatment. Is it just Elm Street, or is there pockets in the city that get attention? And
I would
why?
like to definitely address that with the director.
So those are pretty. I tell people when they run for alderman, these are the things that people, you know, it's not other than the budget and spending people's tax dollars and not spending people's tax dollars. It really does come down to little things like overgrowth or potholes or sidewalks.
Maintaining what you bought into in that neighborhood.
Yeah, and making sure that you're getting your fair share of the money that they took from you.
Yep.
So, what else? Tell me some more about people.
Another big thing in our ward is the redistricting, because I know my daughter attends Green Acres.
Yep.
They were over by about 50 students, I believe.
Yeah.
I'm working with John DiPietro. He has some great numbers, some great ideas on how to fix our, districting problems and are moving the right assets to the right locations to provide better education for our kids.
Yeah, I'm not sure how you feel about this, but I'm really starting to think that we have one high school too many. I think, we hear a lot about overcrowding, but if you really listen, because people unfortunately don't always really listen, the overcrowding's in the grade schools.
Yeah.
We have all these kids in the grade schools, and if you look at the numbers over the years, we've always had kids in the grade schools.
Yeah.
we had a lot of kids in the high schools until Bedford built a school and before the surrounding towns started pulling back kids. So we're down, like, high school students, we're down like 3,000 students, like, in the last 10 years, 10, 15 years.
Yep.
And I don't know, we have 3 full-time public high schools and we have the tech high school. I know if I had to if I got to vote on which I thought needed more of the funds, I'd like to shift more money to the tech school and expand that, because I think I think there's a lot of kids who need to be job ready when they get out of high school a little bit more than we do. Everybody's not going to go to college.
No, most definitely not.
I don't think everybody should go to college, and I don't
It's
want
definitely
every
a better
kid,
fit for some kids, to get in the entry level job right out of high school and
you
work
know,
their way
if you
up.
try to hire, I mean, anybody who's tried to hire any kind of specific job, try to find somebody who can do welding for you. I don't even know where you find a welder, and you can look them up on Google, but those are like major welders. You're like, no, I just need this welded.
Yep.
Yet they're few and far between. Machinists. I mean, these are all really good paying jobs that we could be helping our kids better, I think. But I do think that there's one too many, and then that would be an interesting debate to see
which one, if any, we could close.
If we were going to close one, and I'm obviously a little bit biased about West High, but I think your former alderman Nick Pappas took a lot of grief when he suggested that we sell Central, and and I don't think I think he kind of said it off the cuff, but the more I thought about it, I'm like, well, it is kind of landlocked, and it is the oldest school, and there's a lot of emotional attachment, there's alumni and everything, but I don't think that's necessarily good policy to be basing financial decisions based on what the alumni.
It would be interesting. I mean, there's a lot of different options, whether it's pushing 8th grade into the high school and kind of keeping them away from the upperclassmen. Using that space for something. It's sitting there empty. It's not being productive. It's not helping us, and we're paying for it. So
and there is something, I don't know the numbers, and I'm not running for school board, but I'm very curious to see. I think somebody told me it's like 100. I'm not even going to venture to guess. The overhead, just the true building overhead, like for Central. Never mind all the teachers. I mean, we have a huge English as second language because we have a ton of refugees in this city. They're great people when great people that come here, but a lot of them struggle with English. And maybe if we had 2 high schools focusing on the high school kids learning English better, maybe that would be better than having to fund 3. It's an interesting conversation.
I think Green Acres has a special program for the deaf and hard of hearing,
where
they kind of focus those children so they have the resources they need in Green Acres.
And you don't need, I don't think you need to have that in every grade school.
You need
if your child has is deaf, you would want them to get the best, even if it means having to get them across the river. So, okay, so we're down to like 5 minutes. I'm going to let you make a pitch. You can tell people anything you want. Why they should vote for you, when election day is, all that stuff.
All right. I'll be at the next City Hall meeting on September 5th, I believe it is. I'll be there about an hour before the meeting starts if anyone would like to meet me. I will be working my way around the city still, doing door-to-doors, and most city events I'll be at. My phone number to reach me directly is 603-782-6776. You can do text or call. Email is Elizabeth Moreau, Moreau, @mail.com. No Gmail, just the mail. The special primary is September 19th, and it's at the middle school, McLaughlin Middle School. I'll be there most of the day, and I hope to see you guys there.
Great. Well, I think you are the best choice for
Ward
6. I'm biased. I'm biased, one, because I think we need more women on the board, and, that might be sexist from a women's perspective, but I just think it's nice to have a more diverse board. I'd like to see all ages, all sexes. Barbara Shaw would probably like some company if she survives. I think you have a good chance.
I'm definitely
now, the
invested.
special election, how does that work?
So there'll be 2 ballots. You have the regular primary, since there are 3 candidates for alderman running. Vote me. Then there is also the other ballot for the special. Whoever wins that special ballot will be alderman from that day until the end of the year. And then whoever wins the general election in November will take over starting in the new term.
Not that I think it would happen, but in a weird dynamic, somebody could win the special election and not make it through the primary.
It could.
Because you've got 3. I mean,
It could.
that's highly unlikely.
Yeah.
But it's also interesting. It'll be interesting to see who
If you can
gets
maintain
this-
it.
Yes. Well, because what if, I mean, I don't know, I'm not saying you're a crazy person, but what if you were some crazy person and you
Yeah.
just look really good on the outside and then you get in there and you're like, I'm the crazy alderman. I mean, it's like they get a preview,
Yep. Hopefully everyone keeps an eye on whoever does get
That's
it.
right, and-
kind of critiques us and
Right.
let us know what we can do better. And
That's right.
whether it's me or any other
I always
candidate.
say that. I'm like, if you want me to represent you, you have to tell me what you want.
Yep.
I'm not a mind reader.
Yep.
Well, I am glad you came on.
Thank you.
That's Elizabeth Moreau, Ward 6 Alderman. Make sure you get out and vote in the primary on Tuesday, September 19th.
19th.
And you can get her information. I know you can find you on Facebook.
Elizabeth Moreau, Ward 6 on Facebook.
Yep. And I wish you the best of luck.
Thank
Thanks for
you.
coming. Next week, I will have another candidate. I'll be honest that I can't remember who it is. I think it might be John DePietro. I think it's John DePietro coming
Yep.
next weekend. So that'll be interesting. We'll have another perspective from Ward 6.
He's
on
a
the
great
school board.
candidate.
He is a very good candidate. He's a very knowledgeable man. I appreciate all of you watching. If you have any feedback, if you have any questions and you couldn't remember Elizabeth Moreau's name or whatever it is, or if you'd like to see me have something else on, especially during this election cycle, you can always email me at manchtalk@gmail.com. You can follow me on Facebook and on Twitter at ManchTalk. And if you want to find out anything about me, myself, my website should be up in the next couple days. That's tammysimmons.org, and I gladly take questions there too. I look forward to seeing you again next week, and that's all I have for today. Bye.